Hi, 4th grade. This is your Language Arts e-learning lesson for Thursday, April the 16th. We're going to be taking a look at grammar, irregular verbs. So it's a continuation from yesterday. Here we have more irregular verbs. This is page 120 and 121 in your textbook. Okay, so for irregular verbs, you'll see that it even says right above this chart, there are no rules to help you form the past of irregular verbs. However, there are certain patterns that will help you remember the past forms of some of the irregular verbs. So as we mentioned yesterday, irregular verbs, unfortunately, you just have to remember what the past is and what the past with the helping verb is. But today's irregular verbs, you'll look and you'll notice that there's some similar patterns that take place, and so those are helpful. But again, ultimately, you do need to remember the past and the past with the helping verb. So let's go through this chart together. And so we start with ring. Okay, so it's ring, rang in the past, and then when we use a helping verb, has, have, or had, rung. So it's ring, rang, rung. Notice the vowel change. Ring has an I in it, rang an A, and then rung with the U. So we're going to notice that pattern here. So then we have sing, sang, has, have, had, sung. Again, we went from an I to an A to a U. Then we have swim, swam, has, have, or had, swum. And if you remember when we did this earlier in the year, a lot of you were, oh, swum, what is that? Because it was the past with the helping verb that you weren't used to hearing. But again, noticing the same pattern, that I, A, and then U. And then once again in begin, began, has, have, or had, begun. We go from an I to an A to a U. So there's that little bit of a pattern with these verbs, and so hopefully that will help you to remember how to form past and past with the helping verb. Okay, next we have tear, tear something, tear, tore, has, have, had, torn. Wear, wore, has, have, had, worn. So there you see you have that EAR, then you have ORE, and then ORN. Then we have break, broke, has, have, had, broken. Then we have speak, spoke, has, have, had, spoken. Steal, stole, has, have, had, stolen. And then we have choose, chose, has, have, had, chosen. Freeze, froze, has, have, had, frozen. So here you're looking at a pattern where you have EA in several of these verbs. You have EA, and then of course in choose you have the OO, and then freeze you have EE. So in each of these you have that double vowel, and then here for the past tense it became O with a consonant and that silent E. So you have O consonant E, and then past with the helper you ended up with an EN. So again, that is a type of pattern. If you can remember which of the verbs fall into that pattern, that is helpful. Right? Then we have blow, blew, has, have, had, blown. And then it's grow, grew, has, have, had, grown. Know, knew, has, have, had, known. Fly, flew, has, have, had, flown. Okay, so here we had OW to EW to OWN. Now fly doesn't have the OW, but the rest stayed true to this pattern where you had fly, but then it went to the EW to the OWN. All right, So again, there is somewhat of a pattern with these particular irregular verbs, but the idea is that with irregular verbs, you don't have one set rule to follow. Basically, you just need to know these verb changes, or I should say the form changes for each of these verbs. So let's just take a quick look at the top of page 121. Where you need to fill in the correct form of the verb in parentheses. So the example, Eva and Roy blank warm clothing on the outing, and we're using wear. And so the form that we would use here would be Eva and Roy wore warm clothing, because there was no helping verb there. Okay, and then in number 6, we blank on the way to the campsite using the verb sing. You can see there's no helping verb in this sentence, so we're just going to use the past of sing, which is sang. We sang on the way to the campsite. Number 7, the water in the pond had not blank. We're using a form of phrase. Notice you do have the helping verb had in here, so you have to use a form of the verb that uses the helper. So the water in the pond had not frozen. Number 8, the strong winds have blank down a tent. We're using blow. You do have the helping verb have, so you have to use the form of blow with the helping verb. The strong winds have blown down a tent. Number 9, Mulan blank how to tend the campfire. Okay, you have know there. Okay, you're using past without a helper, so Mulan knew how to tend the campfire. And number 10, she had blank to us about campfire safety. The form we're going to use speak, and the form that we need to use includes a helping verb, so it would be she had spoken to us about campfire safety. Number 11, Mr. and Mrs. Lonzo had blank the food. We have choose. We have to use the form of the verb with the helper had, so it would be had chosen. The raccoons had blank some of it. Okay, we're using a form of steal. There's the helping verb had, so it would be the raccoons had stolen some of it. Good. Okay, now again, this is a review for you since we have done this earlier in the year. So this really is just a review. But again, refer back to your chart here on page 120. When you need to, refer back to this. But sometimes you'll have a verb that's not on the chart. All right, for your work today, what I'd like you to do is workbook page 61. Workbook page 61. Directions tell us to write 6 alphabet sentences. What they mean by an alphabet sentence is a tongue twister, and we'll take a look at the example in a minute. But write 6 alphabet sentences. Use a past form of a verb from the box below. Then write a sentence using words that begin with the same letter as the verb. Each sentence must have at least 4 words, at least. Okay? And at this point in the year, I do expect that your sentences have more than that. But in this case, because they want you to use words that begin with the same letter, they're saying, well, at least 4 words. The first sentence has been done for you. So the verb that was chosen here is fly. They're using the past with the helping verb, which would be had flown. And so because they chose fly as their verb, it begins with an F. You're using as many words as you possibly can that begin with the letter F. And so their sentence was, or their sentence is, 5 flocks of feathered finch had flown from the forest. Now, the sentence makes perfect sense, even though it's called an alphabet sentence, even though it's a little bit of a tongue twister. It does make sense. You have 5 flocks, okay? birds, groups of birds are called flocks. So here you have 5 flocks of feathered finch. And finch is a type of bird, so they just described it as feathered finch, had flown from the forest. So you're saying you had 5 flocks of birds that flew from the forest. Basically, that's what they're saying. And in doing that, though, they made it a little bit of a tongue twister. 5 flocks of feathered finch had flown from the forest. And you can see that pretty much every word in that sentence begins with the letter F, with the exception, of course, of your helping word, and then you have the of and the. But that gives you an example of what you need to do. So you're going to choose 5 different verbs from the box. Do not repeat any of the verbs. Choose 5 different ones from the box. Use either the past tense or past with the helper. So here again, they use past with the helper. It could have also have just been flew. 5 flocks of feathered finch flew from the forest. That would have been correct as well. But you do need to choose 5 different verbs from the box at the top. It can be, you can use either the past tense or past with the helper. Either one is correct. But then also make sure that the other words in your sentence also begin with the same letter as the verb that you choose. Okay, so you're only writing 5 sentences here. Okay, there's space for 6. They've done the first one for you, so you have just 5 others. But you are choosing verbs from the box, and you're only allowed to use the verb 1 time. It doesn't say it up there, but I'm telling you, okay, you can only use it 1 time. And that's all that you need to complete on this page. Okay. Also for today, you have spelling city, which is parts of speech. You have wordly wise. Read over carefully the new words for lesson 12, and then you're completing 12A and B. And then fever for today is chapter 16, and make sure that you read those questions and answer those questions carefully. Okay. Also, don't forget to be spending some time reading your AR book as well. You want to continue to take those AR tests. Okay. All right. Any questions or concerns that you have, anything you need help with, please reach out to me. I'll talk to you later. Bye.